Hi everyone, my name's Justin Owen and I'm going to be taking you through a dive on Henry's Ridge at Dorothea. I don't normally narrate any of my diving videos, I normally put music to them, but I thought this one was a pretty special one that might need a bit of explanation as we go through it. I have to admit to being a little bit obsessed with this particular dive, even though I've only done the whole ridge a few times now. Quite often we've dived it from the 40 metre shelf and also from the other end of the ridge at the Pinnacles side, but only been able to go so far to not having the right gas, and in the early days not having the right training really to do this dive. As most of you will probably know, the ridge came about because Dorothea was actually a number of quarries in the early days. All those quarries started to expand, and they basically left what we now know as Henry's Ridge as a formation between the two main parts of the quarry. I'm not generally one for disclaimers, but it's probably worth noting at this point before we drop over the edge that this is a reasonably deep dive. It's around 70 metres at its deepest point on the ridge itself, so it's a mixed gas dive and it does require the appropriate decompression gases as well. You also obviously need to be familiar and comfortable with your kit, and you'll need to be comfortable coping with whatever situations may arise while you're down there. We're diving with twin sets of Trimix, and we've both got stages of decompression gas for the trip back up on the other side. So with that, we will pick up on the 40 metre shelf, and we're just heading over to the small wall at the edge of the 40 metre shelf that I'm sure most of you are already familiar with. So we're just looking back at the wall there with a little bit of chain that hangs off it, and we're just now going to drop down onto Henry's Ridge itself. A few things I should probably mention here. I'm using a Sony high definition video camera of the old school variety, which is great in some circumstances, but as with most cameras, they're not particularly good when you've got low light, and there is not a huge amount of light down here. It's using twin 10-watt HID lamps which provide a little bit of background light, which is what you're seeing now. Unfortunately, that does leave the picture a little noisy. The torch you can see flailing around is just my HID, which is hanging off my harness underneath me. It was difficult to see what the picture was like while we were down there, so I was hoping the HIDs would pick up everything that we needed to. So we're just dropping down now. So I guess at this point we're probably about 45-50 metres, just picking up the start of the ridge and heading out. The other slight problem I had is that my camera setup is about 4 kilos negative when it has the lights on it, which leaves you quite head heavy, and if you stop you will start to tip over. So unfortunately for most of this I had to be finning in order to maintain my trim in the water, which caused a few little problems because rather than nicely floating and hovering and getting a lot more detail, it did mean I was moving along as we went. Something to try and address for next time. So we're just on the ridge now. As you can see, I'm on the right hand side of the ridge as we look out towards the Pinnacles. I've also removed the sound, unfortunately, from the video because I think the microphone was either not working due to the depth, or it is not working at all anymore, so all I was getting was static, so I've had to take that off, unfortunately. So the ridge at this point gets a little bit narrower. I was watching this back earlier and sort of thought that looks a bit like a crocodile's back. This is one of the lumps, or the bumps if you like, on the ridge. I think there's some old metal work in there that may have had lines or rope attached to it in the past. I'm going to try and overlay some of the old photographs and maybe try and pinpoint where we were as well, which isn't as easy as it sounds because I think the ridge has changed a little bit over time since some of those photographs were taken. So dropping down a little deeper now. Here's my dive buddy Martin coming into frame. Then we've got another little raised bit on the ridge itself. I can only guess that this is where the cans are tied off above the ridge, so that line goes straight to the surface. One of our bailout plans, if we needed to get off the ridge, would be to head up those lines. Okay, we've got Martin in the background there. A bit of an old line between two bits of the ridge. I'm not sure what that's there for. And I think this is Martin potentially trying to get his maximum depth on the dive. Please ignore the positioning of his stages. I'm trying to educate him and get him to tidy that up a little bit. A little quick back up to the line there. So carry on a little bit further. Looks like we've got some bits of rusty metal on the top there. And then we've got another little section that drops down a tad. Camera's having a little bit of trouble focusing with just the background lights, which is every so often I do try and get my main torch in, but not too easy with the camera setup and the torch as well. So I'm just popping over the ridge onto the left hand side now. Check back to check where the buddy is. And I think this is the first step up onto the pinnacles. So it's actually not a huge distance between the 40-metre ledge and the start of the pinnacles, to be fair. It's not very far at all. So quick glance up here, and I think that's one of the bits that you can spot on some of the old photographs. So we're essentially already starting to ascend up now. Again, just looking up there, looking back slightly. Okay, just getting ready for the ascent. At some point around here I did have a slight, I wouldn't say a moment, but the camera's attached with a lanyard and it managed to get quite well wrapped around my inflator hose. So I had to make sure that was sorted out before I started to ascend, and didn't fancy a runaway ascent from 70 metres. we're just looking up here at the first pinnacle. So that's looking up, we can just see both pinnacles there, and that characteristic notch that you see on a lot of the photographs and some of the drawings that people have done. At this point I really wished I didn't have the camera with me. If I hadn't have had the camera, I think I'd have just been swimming away from the ridge, getting as far away as possible and just looking up. Obviously your eyes can see a lot better than the camera can down there, and it was quite an awesome sight looking up at the pinnacles floating down there. Quick check on Buddy to make sure he's happy. Quick gas check. And we're going to start ascending up the first pinnacle. The plan is to get to the connection rope that leads across back to the main wall of the quarry. So that was the plan. Okay, so another quick look at the pinnacle. Quick buddy check. I've edited bits and bobs of this, by the way, so we were in fairly close contact for the vast majority of the ridge as we came over. I couldn't help just looking up on the way. I say it was quite an inspiring sight down there. We were quite lucky that we had obviously really good visit depth that we normally have, but it was quite a light day as well, so we had quite a lot of light shining down. So onwards up the pinnacles we go. So we dive in 1835 trimix, I think was my final mix that I did this dive on. So what we basically have is two decompression cylinders, one of 32% to get onto fairly soon, and then 80% for decompression from 10 meters upwards. So on the way up here we are doing gas switches, and again I've edited those out because all you'll see is the camera flailing around. You'll notice me signalling my buddy over on the right because he's decided that he wanted to have a little bit of an explore in the bowl on the right hand side of the ridge, so he's now on the quarry wall while I'm still on the pinnacle. So not quite sure why we deviated from the plan there, but we're both diving manifolded twin sets and we're on the ascent now, so it's not a huge issue. He's not actually that far away, but obviously the camera can't pick him up once he gets more than about 7 or 8 meters away. Hi Tony and Peter, I'm guessing you were here sometime this year too. Okay, another quick look up. So we're we're near now the connection line between the pinnacles and the wall of the quarry on the other side. It's here that I noticed that the lens was a bit dirty on the camera, so I had to have a bit of a clean of that to try and get a better picture. And in doing so I twanged some of the silt off the line. So just a quick look up there to the shallower pinnacle, and you can see Martin's bubbles on the right hand side coming up as well. And there he is. He's still a bit below me, unfortunately, and he's on the wall, so we're actually going the long way round now rather than jumping across on the fixed line. We're keeping the wall on the left hand side and we're going to follow it round. Gets you to the same place but takes a little bit longer. But as we've got about 22-23 minutes decompression to complete at this point, it's not actually a huge issue having that swim back. A quick glance back. There's the shallower pinnacle. There's Buddy just coming up. I keep trying to get him to clip his stages higher off, but he won't have it. And a quick glance up again. So, what we're going to do now is we're basically keeping the wall on the left hand side, and we're going to follow the wall all the way back to the entry platform. So as I said, we've got about 22-23 minutes decompression at this point. The swim back will keep us warm, and it'll get us back to the right entry point. Okay, and we will leave it there because all we have now is a long swim back to the platform at 6 meters. Hope you enjoyed that dive across Henry's Ridge. I'll probably re-edit this in the future and try and get in some of the older pictures as well to try and track the route over. So as I get a chance, I will update this and re-edit it. Thank you for watching.